Hello and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. My name is Draxter Dupre, and of course, I have to mention contractually Joe Yardley in the beginning of the show because that's the name of the show. But she's not here actually because she's building something for Second Life's 13th birthday party. With me, however, is a special co-host, and his name might be familiar. His name is Arden Schwartzman. Hi, Arden.
Hello, Drax. I'll be the new Joe Yardley for today.
Right, you have a similar accent, so that's cool. Let's be honest, Art, why I brought you in here, because you're an expert on sex in virtual worlds.
I am, yes. Thank you for considering me.
This is, in fact, the theme of the show, as you have undoubtedly gathered from the thumbnail and the name. On today's show, Ella Darling, and I wrote all this stuff down old school here on paper today. Ella Darling is a porn pioneer in VR porn. She's a former librarian. She's the co-founder of VRTube.xxx, and she also just started with a new venture, Cam4VR. We're going to talk all about that. She is also politically active with the Free Speech Coalition, which is an industry organization for the adult and I think pleasure product industry is the correct term. Before we go to Ella Darling, which is the center and feature of the show, since we, Arduin, are active in Second Life and have been for some time, and it's interesting for me because I've been trying to work against the image of Second Life as sort of this cesspool or whatever. So let me ask you, is there sex in Second Life?
Is there sex on the internet? I think that's a very similar question. So, yeah, it's part of our lives, and Second Life is a form of life, so it's in there too, obviously. A more valid question especially for outsiders should be, is there something else than sex in Second Life?
The most important question, because obviously that's a theme on this very podcast where we almost on a weekly basis, criticize our friend over at New World Notes, who claims that actually the only thing that is happening in Second Life is sex between furries, humans, and whatnot. And that is, of course, complete baloney. But what you just said reminded me of former Linden Lab CEO Rod Humble, and I interviewed him a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now, and he said he was asked at a Google event by an audience member. He was speaking, and the member of the audience said, isn't Second Life just sex and stuff? Rod Humble answered, what is the world's largest search engine for porn? The answer is Google.
Exactly.
Let me just say, sex does not equal porn. And also, I wanted to reveal, you heard it on this show first, that Arden and you didn't notice, but before I started the Drax Files, I almost started a career in making virtual porn machinima.
You're the Sylvester Stallone of Second Life.
Exactly. I almost sort of got into an area where I could have made a lot of money, but now I just make art films. No, we did a documentary called Log Into Life, and we're going to link it on the blog, for German television. It came out in 2011, and I filmed extensively in world with Stroker Serpentine, who used to be the sex god of Second Life with his $1 million business of making sex beds, animations, attachments, and so on and so forth. And I filmed the machinima portion of this film while the director of the film, Daniel Muschel, filmed in real life at the mansion that Stroker Serpentine was able to purchase through his Second Life business in Florida. And I want to play a little excerpt from this film because the film is not only about Stroker Serpentine. It follows 7 protagonists who are active in Second Life and World of Warcraft. And it also features Gentle Heron from Virtuality. And Gentle Heron has a fantastic quote in this film. Is my favorite scene, where she talks about the stigma of sex in virtual worlds in regards to people with disabilities.
Sex is one of the reasons people come into Second Life. I think people who are non-disabled and can have sex in real life come into Second Life for fantasy sex. And I think people who are disabled and desexed by society come into Second Life to have any kind of sex.
So that was Gentle Heron. It's a powerful statement.
You just can't ignore it. It's part of our life, and some people with disabilities, they just get their life back, you would say.
Through the avatar representation.
It's mostly between the ears, so you might say you just close your eyes and start to wander off with your mind. But I think we need some references, especially visually, because people are just very visual. Our eyes are more evolved than our nose and our ears. So, yeah, this visuality is greatly reproduced in Second Life with avatars or in any virtual world. If you can't do this in real life, say you can't use your legs or whatever, your legs more or less come back in a virtual world. Second Life are the spring. They're the source, the social media hub to bring people together in a much easier way than in the physical world. Sex is like anything else in your life. It enables that too. It enables you to find partners more easily, similar to friendships.
And we'll talk like I mentioned, with Ella Darling later in the show. She'll also address what avatars actually mean and where the train is headed. What she's doing right now, of course, is she'll be much more eloquent describing it. In terms of 360 video, you pop on a Google Cardboard, you pop on an HTC Vive, and then you're right there with an actor that does what you want. For us in Second Life, sometimes the lack of visual fidelity is really not a problem because we're completely invested in the world. So we kind of forget about the lack of realism. We still have this enormous investment in the world. And I saw that when we were shooting Log Into Life and we talked about Stroker Serpentine, some of his customers, that they just feel like they're really in there. Now, when you project forward, where do you think the train is headed when we go to ultra-realism in terms of either sexual relations or pornography?
The time appears to be right for the next step to go into this 360-degree world, because as it is now, it's like, wow, you go in a roller coaster or in a jet fighter, or you visit a naughty site, and then there's this guy or this lady moving all around you, but you can see the pixels.
Right, and the scale is off. Ella will talk about this, that actually this could be a potential backlash. I agree with that when people are being told like how awesome all this stuff is.
But I'm very confident that this will eventually catch up too, because there's still an advance in computer power. So,
were you tempted to go into the adult business in Second Life? This is completely non sequitur, but I just thought of it. I mean, people have made tons of money over the years, and you are such a talented scripter and modeler and everything. You could have killed a lot of competition.
Yeah, but the other thing is I'm completely stupid about money. I'm not really interested in that.
Right, your stuff is like 10 Linden dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, which reminds me, I need to mention some new advertisers, some new subscribers, some new sponsors of the show, and one of them seems to be a business of yours. It's called Warbugs. Is that true?
Yeah.
Right. So these are awesome little planes that fly around and you can kill people.
No. It's a very non-violent game. You don't kill people. No, you just shoot down the planes, and because of the laws of nature in Second Life, the pilots are never killed for some reason. So I take pride in that.
Nice.
But the plane's fates are horrible.
It's an awesome game. Warbugs is the new sponsor. Thank you, Arduin. And the other new sponsor this week is SLArtist.com, the original SL Art community with interviews and machinima and all sorts of things. SLArtist.com. Let's go back to the subject matter at hand. And before we go to Ella Darling, I want to play an interview. I put out the word on Facebook, who from the Second Life community wants to talk about sex in Second Life. 5 seconds later, Mona V. Voigt contacted me. She's a psychic tarot reader in SL since 2007. She does tarot readings. Is tarot the right pronunciation, Art?
Intuitively, I'd say tarot.
Virtual sex for me means safe sex. It's about the safest sex that you can have. You know? You can't get anything, you know? You can't get any diseases, you can't get anything like that. And, you know, and if you respect it as for what it is, that it is sex, and not try to turn it into love until a relationship has developed, you know. I met my SL partner, my SL partner, in 2007, and we were in game every night together when you get off of work. And then we met 3 years later in like January of 2010. We met in real, and then I moved across the country to be closer to him because he lived in Canada. So I moved to Vermont. We were less than an hour away, so we could see each other all the time. Now, he died in June of 2014, but our SL relationship was as real as you can get. That was our relationship, you know? We had sex every night in the game. I mean, it's part of a relationship. I would in real, so, so why would you deny it?
You are in the space, you're sharing the space. You feel like this is your digital extension, right?
Yes. Mona, my avatar, is me. I do know that in SL, I am tamer as a person than I am in real. I'm more of a prude in SL than I am in real. Which, that's because I've always been the person who feels that if you're going to play around, you don't play around in your own backyard, and SL's too small. Everybody knows everybody.
That's interesting. This is a completely contrary to public opinion.
And eventually somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows you.
You said in the very beginning, like you have to be clear with the other person what kind of relationship it is, because it is so real. So you say, this is just for sex. I don't want anything else. You got to really make that clear. Please explain this to me again in the context of, it can get pretty messy when it's not clear what people really want.
Get it off the table, or put it on the table. I am an astrologer in real, and I do the Magi astrology. And there are linkages between people which make sex happen or not happen. I have been able to, in studying with them, I have been able to figure out which linkages make for the best sex between two people. And I have been testing it, to be honest. Like I'll say, okay, I'll try this with you, when we don't have these linkages and it doesn't work out, and I try those that we do, and then the sex is so great, it's like, wow, this is awesome, and that, so, but a lot of people who aren't maybe as much of a free thinker as I am in real, to where I can just have sex, and I know it's not love, they're actually not it's not that they're being not clear enough with the other person, they're not being clear enough with themselves as to what it is.
If I were to ask you, how can you have a meaningful sexual encounter when there's like a screen in between you?
I think it does take having, maybe for, I don't know about men and women, there's always differences, but I know that for me, I have a very creative mind. When I was a little girl and I had to do housework, my mom would make me wash dishes and dust. I would pretend like I was doing a commercial when I was doing those chores. The creativity was there. The other thing was when SL had that beta viewer that had voice, I was in there. So I was in that, and I loved it. But I do know that the voice has a lot to do with it, between whether people will be be turned on by each other or not. It's that voice, and that's what matters. You can watch the people in the game, and even there, you can have two avatars standing together. They don't even have to interact sexually. It's going to be the voices that take the people there.
Would you say now that in the world that we live now, where head-mounted displays are going to be available? I mean, right now they're still about $800, the Oculus and the HTC Vive. The cardboard is a little bit cheaper, but the sex business will the sex business in Second Life be destroyed by the advent of this new hardware?
No, it's about the linkages between the people. All that technology isn't gonna really change it. I wish women would be more expressive and accept themselves for the sexuality that they might have.
That they accept their own expressiveness and then are not afraid that if they were expressive that they would be not accepted by the men.
Yeah. I mean, there is, I've had so much sex in SL, I'll be honest. Such good and bad experiences, and if you keep your mouth shut and just watch as you go through playing, whatever way you want to play this up, you just kind of keep your mouth shut sometimes and just watch, you learn so much, about yourself, about other people, and even though I have had some horrible experiences with it. I mean, as far as I've broken hearts and I've had my heart broken. So I mean, it's not like it's all one-sided one way or the other. I still would not trade it. I still believe that it's worth it.
If you would to give a little advice for someone who wants to be who wants to get to know people, but also the social etiquette. I mean, how do you go about it? Because there's also no-nos. I mean, I think they're kind of related to real life, right? You don't go to someone and say, "Hey, baby, what's up?"
Well, I'm the kind of girl where I've never been afraid to go places alone in real. I always do. And if I want to have sex in real, I'll ask somebody. I'm not afraid of that. So I take that attitude into Second Life, and I kind of have it there. But like I said, I'm a little bit tamer. So I have learned that you don't, that I got kicked out of a group once because I had sex with two guys in the group, and the owner lady got mad and kicked me out of the group and banned me from it. So it's a smaller world than real, You don't play in your own backyard, and I was playing in my own backyard.
So it really doesn't matter if you really teleport basically the equivalence of thousands of miles away into some club, you might actually bump into someone.
You will, yeah.
Is there a dark side?
There always is. I have met a couple of men that have, who knows how many alts. When they admit to 17 alts, half of them female, half of them male, and they're logging on. Well, they're with you. They're logging on these other ones, and they're you're with them and they're all standing there in front of you, like 5 at a time, and they take you to a sex place and they're saying, okay, she's talking to so and so and she's going to get them to come with her. I mean, when you're observe, and I don't shy away from these things because I observe it, and I just watch what they're doing because I'm just kind of fascinating. And you watch them doing this, and they're using they're using female avatars to get girls in who are lesbians so they can have sex with them. And they're using, the guy avatars to get the girls who want guys, and they're doing these at the same time. It's, oh yeah, you can hit a really dark spot very quickly.
When somebody then makes demands in real life, I guess, is my question. That dark side where they track you down.
Oh yeah, I had someone that insisted, and they're married in real, and they were insisting, and they have with everyone they've been with, because us girls, guys got to remember, girls will talk to each other, no, we're gonna share experiences, and I'm not afraid of talking about sex with people, So, anyways, they're like, you've got to. I want to control you in real. I want you to be mine in real too, and you're like, what the heck, You can't have me in real, You can't even have me in SL, So I mean, it's like I don't know. People do try to do. There is always a dark side to it, There's always a dark side, but I met my first husband. I was hitching a ride, and he picked me up in real. So if that tells you, I'm kind of adventuresome. So
Where did he pick you up?
I was hitching a ride.
Oh,
it was dead of winter, and I had a flat tire, and so I was out, coming back from the airport from somewhere and visiting some friends, and there was nothing around, so I just, what are you going to do? This is before cell phones. What are you going to do? I didn't have a cell phone. Get out of the car, I hitched a ride, he picked me up. That's how I met him.
Oh boy. And today 10-year-olds can't even go alone home from school, and the police pick them up and put the parents in jail because of the negligent behavior. Jesus Christ. Okay, so where do you have sex in SL? Do you have to rent a room?
No, I always have loved. I used to own a couple Sims from the Lindens. Most of the times, when I'm doing sex now, we aren't even using any of the tools that SL offers, the beds, all those kind of things, you know. We may put ourselves into a position in there, you know, but then we're on voice. And even sometimes when we're having sex, I like to watch porn. I have nothing against watching porn. I like porn. I have some of my favorites. Everybody has their favorites that they like. You know, most of us girls talk about it. We share our ideas of what's our favorites, and I'll have my favorites I like to watch. So, you know, we can always both pop up the same porn and watch it while we're talking on voice. I mean, that's a possibility. When Beta first came around and SL first opened up with their voice, I owned a club called Erotic Land. I would be on the club, and I had sex things on the club, you know, so that people could use them for sex things and romance things too. Michael and I would be on Skype on voice, but I'd have voice open in Second Life, and he and I would be masturbating, and people could hear me. They couldn't hear him, but they would hear me, and they liked that a lot. I've done sex in some public places in real, kind of, you know, like you know, you're at a party and you take your husband or whatever, it's my husband or whatever, into the one of the rooms, and, you know, yeah, I've done crazy things like that, you know.
At a party, when you go into a room with your husband, is a different thing than doing this. Let's say, even if it's only audio, in an entire club. I have always had friends who were on the fringe. I've had friends who were swingers in real, you know, and that kind of stuff. So, and I've had friends who were, you know, the BDSM stuff in real, and I'm not into that for myself, personal taste, you know. I mean, I guess if somebody wants to do it, I can RP it with them a little bit, you know, but it's not really my thing. I'm used to being around a lot of people who were like that. But as far as like going to an orgy place in real, no, I haven't done that. Haven't gone to like an orgy place, you know. My last question, and I kind of already know the answer, so you don't have a problem that in the public, Second Life is associated with sex sometimes. I mean, in the media, right, when they write about it. I guess you don't have a problem with it. What I have a problem with is when the media reduces it to just sex.
It is not just sex. It is not just sex. There is so much more to Second Life. I mean, when Michael died, the people in real could not give me the comfort that the people in Second Life could, because Second Life people knew him. Nobody in real really knew what this relationship was. They didn't understand how we met. They didn't understand, you know, the many nights we were together in here and doing things. But the people in Second Life did. They knew him. They knew me. So they gave me much more comfort during those months after he had died than the people in real could ever give me. I mean, my family knew that I had met him in the game and this kind of stuff, but they don't play it. They don't play Second Life, so they don't get it. People just don't, who aren't in it, just don't get it. My brother is 2 years older than me. We were both adopted, and he taught me back when I used to just try to reason with my parents on everything. And he told me one day, he says, you know, Julie, you're doing this wrong. That's my real name is Julie. He says, when you're with mom and dad, don't target, argue, make your point across to them. They're set in their ways. They have their own mind thinking, and you have yours. So just let them say what they want to say, and just go, and then when you leave, do what you want to do, and you're going to save yourself a lot of headaches and heartaches. And so that's what I do. I'm just like, okay. When people start in on Second Life, I just go, and I just let them talk, and I go do my own thing. They're never going to understand. I'm never going to reason with them.
So that was Mona V. Voigt. What do you think of Mona V. Art?
When I was listening to the interview, the part that touched me most was when she was talking about the mother in the end. I'm sorry to spoil the subject in that respect.
Let's go to our featured interview with Ella Darling. Again, I said it at the beginning. She is the co-founder of VRTube.xxx. She runs Cam for VR, and she's going to talk about what that is. She does holographic pornography. It's insane.
She's very high-tech, state-of-the-art in the industry.
And here she is recounting her experience at the Silicon Valley Virtual Reality Conference and Expo in 2015, where I recall in 2014, people on the various panels were very apprehensive, even acknowledging that VR porn will become a phenomenon.
Last year at SVVR, I attended, and I went to the keynote, and they kind of touched on the adult a little bit, and nobody wanted to talk about it. So I got up and I asked a question, and I was like, look, whether you like it or not, VR porn exists, and it's here, and it's awesome. So my question is the industry going to passively tolerate it or actively block it? And Palmer was the only person who responded, and I have great respect for him for this and for many reasons. But he responded in a way that was kind of dancing around the question, but essentially the point was, yes, we're going to passively tolerate it because what did he say? The Oculus Rift is an open platform, and that's a big deal. And it is a big deal because that is the thing that is helping us. The fact that they're not actively blocking adult content really does help my industry, and I think it helps the VR industry also because adult is huge, and especially with VR, people are actually spending money on it, and it drives adoption. But yeah, so it went from being at SVVR, standing up and asking this question about porn, and then having people at the conference for the rest of the weekend or the week or whatever approach me to talk about it, sometimes secretly, sometimes sheepishly, sometimes with a lot of condescension, not so much so. So that was my first SVVR experience. That was kind of the first big event that I went to.
You're going from sort of like, okay, she's in the room, to Sundance panel. I think what's next is definitely probably the White House.
You know, I actually just spoke at the California State Capitol yesterday, but it wasn't about virtual reality. It was about some really awful things happening politically that will affect the porn industry.
I saw a picture of you in a virtual environment, and I was going to ask you, you rattled off earlier all this stuff that you did. You did 360 video, you did holographic porn, dating simulator. These are all passive forms of consuming. And the reason why I'm asking is because I'm obviously obsessed with Second Life. And, you know, this is kind of the goal where it could go to, that people who are not in the same physical location, whoever they are, they could be wife and husband, they could be just hooking up through some sort of app. How far is the road from what we're doing now, where I'm going to buy an experience from you that is pre-taped, to actual real-time sort of teledildonics was something that Stroker Serpentine wanted to get into in 2007, and then it didn't come to fruition. But now we're actually revisiting all this stuff. So take it where you will.
Other things that I mentioned, the holographic stuff, the dating simulator, the pre-recorded content, that was all passive. But what we're doing now with the live cams and with Cam 4 VR is an active, engaging experience. So when you log into my Cam 4 VR chat room, I am in front of you in real time, live. You can chat with me, you can talk to me, you can ask me to do things, you can tip me to do the things you want me to do, and I will do them. We have conversations. It's a very active, engaging experience. And teledildonics is already here. We're working on, I think for our next phase of Cam 4 VR, we're working on incorporating Kiru, which is a teledildonic device where there's a male stroker and there's a dildo that would be used for, it wouldn't have to be used on women, it would be, you know, just the other person would use that. And it's reciprocal. And yeah, so it basically reciprocates touch over space.
Explain the difference between holographic porn or Cam 4 VR.
So the holographic porn that we made, we used a time-of-flight depth camera, it was actually a Microsoft Kinect, to capture the performer's body in space. It was stereoscopic, and you kind of lean around. There was positional tracking. I would isolate the performer's body in space based on 3 axes and then place her into a digitally rendered environment, which might have been what you saw.
That's what I saw, right. And I thought, like, wow, are we already at the point where we can insert real physical human beings into a completely virtual environment, and we have the entire sort of tracking issue resolved?
Well, there's always going to be tracking issues, especially when it comes to being able to walk around. If there's a static person, like if I'm looking forward in space, if you move, then we go from me looking into your eyes to me looking kind of behind you, and that's a little bit alienating. But so Cam 4 VR is not holographic. It is a stereoscopic video experience. We do a 3D 360 live program, basically. So we create a photosphere, which is 3D 360, and then we stream on top of it. And yeah, so we're not quite at the place where you can walk around a room and feel like you're in the room with me in real time. That's going to take a little bit of time, and it also takes I would say the biggest prohibitive factor is cost, because that would take a large array of cameras, and it's very hard to scale that. You could probably create that experience right now. It just would be very, very limited and very expensive. And porn, by nature, needs to be cheap. Porn has always, well, I don't want to say always, but porn, at least now, operates on a very low budget. When you compare a pornographic film, like a standard film, to a mainstream film, even like an indie film, even indie shorts tend to cost more than a full feature-length porn film. Like a lot of female porn stars who produce for them, the budgets tend to be $5,000 to $8,000 for a whole film for 4 sex scenes. So anyway, with Cam 4 VR, it's not holographic, but it is a 3D 360 experience. And you had mentioned avatars, and I don't incorporate avatars. The reason why I tend to steer away from avatars is part of it is technical, but part of it is because I don't want to incorporate a corporal aspect for the user unless that body can reflect their actual identity. I don't want to create something that makes everybody feel like, oh, this is just made for, straight white dudes. Because I want anybody of any gender identity, of any racial identity, of any background of any sort, of any body type, to create something that matches their personal body identity. It's important to incorporate diversity and to encourage a wide spectrum of representation in everything that we do. I think it's especially important in virtual reality and in this tech space, not just when you're in an experience, but in general, to incorporate the voices and experiences and perspectives of a wide, diverse range of people. And, even something as passive as like choosing the standard avatar in a program can send a message that says, this isn't for you. You're not included here. You don't belong here.
It's great to hear that you're very conscious of this. So you envision a possibility technologically where someone could also inhabit an avatar of their choosing that might not be their physical identity.
Definitively. Nobody gets to decide your identity but you. Like, that is, your identity belongs to you. And so whatever that is, I would like to be able to give people the opportunity to define that on their own terms rather than define it for them. I don't think that's ethical to do to people. I have friends who identify as transgender, and some of them have told me that some of their first experience is kind of like trying to experience, or some of their first times that they started to express their genuine identity was through something like Second Life, where they could control their physical representation and nobody else had to know. They didn't have to, it wasn't a personal thing. It wasn't them going out into the world and putting themselves at risk. It was just an opportunity for them to kind of explore a little bit and start the process of transitioning and getting to the point where they got to live as their authentic self.
The porn industry had, just like many other industries, problems when the internet became sort of this equalizer where now people can post their own stuff, amateur porn. I mean, it's the same with traditional journalism is being threatened by blogging, still is. So the whole newspaper industry got sort of turned around and diminished in many ways, many other industries, music, and so on and so forth. Do you see, it just occurred to me that with VR, now you're offering some sort of polished, great services. I mean, the whole plethora of the stuff that you offer is great, but what will happen when that is also being democratized? And I have my own 360 camera. Where is it? My Ricoh Theta that is not even 4K. But if I don't know, if I can afford a rig in my bedroom and then I do my own stuff, and then we have the same sort of competition between the pros and the amateurs, I guess, and then prices might even fall again.
Prices didn't fall because of amateur porn. Prices fell because people stopped paying for porn. People steal porn, they torrent it, they watch tube sites. Tube sites are a very problematic part of the industry. And actually, I would argue that with the internet and with the proliferation of the ability to create your own content and make amateur porn, the porn industry actually thrived because of it. That was great for us. Because previously, and still, if you're creating porn just for like a DVD market, and I'm seeing this in VR right now also, you're investing a lot of money, especially into the distribution. So you have to make something that is very marketable and consumable by a very large consumer base. So you tend to make things that are safe or traditional, and you don't tend to explore things that are less typical or different perspectives or different ideas or different experiences. But with the internet, with the ability to make your own porn, there's a site that I think is really cool called Clips for Sale, and it did exactly what you said. It gave amateurs all over the world the opportunity to sell and distribute their own porn. And I think democratization of porn is awesome because that means that we're including new perspectives and new viewpoints, and I think that is vital to have an ethical industry. So previously, if you're someone who really likes feet, you would go to the porn store, you would look for anything. I mean, if it mentions feet, you lucked out. But for the most part, you're like looking for something and hoping that there's going to be a scene that will give you the thing that you want. And feet is just an example here. It could be whatever your proclivity is, whatever your interest is. It was an effort to go and find it. And now you can go on Clips for Sale and find the diversity of categories there is profound. I mean, if I want to see girls dressed as clowns, I can find all of the clown porn I want. And the people who really get off on clown porn now have a platform. They now have a place where they can discuss the nuances of the clown porn that they really like and what they want from it and what's good and what's not. And then that starts to diversify. So actually that's very, very good, because what that did for porn was it made a greater consumer base start to pay for porn, because now, holy shit, I can get the thing that I actually want. Of course I'm going to pay for that. And now what we see is an empowerment of performers to create their own content based on whatever it is that interests them. I have friends who make giantess videos where they are giants and they're talking to the viewers, or they're a tiny little person and this is a fetish. And they, like, my friend pays her mortgage making these fun, ridiculous porn videos, and that's amazing. And what I'm seeing in VR right now is that there are production companies that they spend a lot more money, because producing VR porn is more expensive than producing traditional porn. And because of that, they have to make what's safe. They have to make what's going to sell. So when VR porn becomes democratized in the same way that traditional porn was, which is something that I'm actually working towards. Part of Cam4 VR, one of the next steps is going to be letting performers use our camera system, use our stitching system to record their own content and upload it to sell. Now, that is definitely going to bring a diversity of vision to VR porn that I think is going to be very, very good for everybody.
Give me a quick rundown on costs, if you will, like the live cam. What do I have to pay for what amount of time?
For our live cam for Cam4 VR, it's actually a tipping economy. So you log in and you can passively watch as much as you want. If you want to chat with her, if you want her to do things, and when I say her, I say that because at this point, all of our performers are female, but that's going to change soon. So you don't actually have to pay for it immediately. If you want to have a private show with someone, that's going to be something we implement soon. That would be, I mean, it would be the performer's discretion, frankly, but it would probably be about 50% more than you would pay for a private chat right now. But yeah, it's based on tipping. So you go in and you tip for what you want to see.
And these are set, this is awesome. So these are set times when that performance is happening, and I'm just going to go in there and then I can decide what I want, or how much I want to spend. The other question, the distribution of headsets. I mean, you're dependent, the whole industry is dependent. I want to go into that area. I mean, I want this to succeed. And again, from the Second Life community's perspective, everything that makes immersion more immersive is awesome. So adding hardware to an already sort of existing wonderful creative world is great. But in your case, if people don't have headsets, they cannot buy your product. So you are dependent on the success of these various headsets. If you could comment on that.
So that was actually a concern of mine. The first cam platform we launched, we used a green screen. And so you could really only watch it. Like the performer could really only cam because the software depended on our VR, the platform. People could only watch it with a headset. But now with Cam4 VR, we've taken a different approach because we do a real life capture of the space. The performer is camming in virtual reality. At the same time, if you log into your browser and you just go to her URL, you can watch it without a headset. It's not virtual reality, but you can still see the video feed. And that's very important because I think that performers, like right now, it's still kind of a niche audience. There's not enough people online frequently enough to spend money to support the performers to do this with their time. So we knew it was very important to allow them to cam to their existing audience, because if their existing audience comes to Cam4, They see the performer that they like on cam, and they see something that says, oh, hey, this is available in virtual reality. Click here to learn more. If I really like this performer, I want to take it to the next level. I'm definitely going to buy a headset. One concern that I do have, and going back to the amateur content, I think amateur content is great. With virtual reality, I do have a little bit of concern in that a lot of people, when they're new to creating VR porn, they don't know much about how to create good quality. So a lot of people make porn that the scaling is off, or it's just not created in such a way that's meant for virtual reality. They're still thinking in terms of 2D traditional porn. They're not thinking in terms of a new medium. And so one concern I do have is not that amateurs are going to make porn. It's that people are going to make VR porn that doesn't conform to expectations for the medium, and that people are going to watch poorly made content on something like a cardboard device, which isn't the ideal device anyway, and they're going to take away from this that this is just a crappy gimmick and it sucks.
Great point. I want to ask just a couple more questions. We're running short on time. I just had a great business idea for you. You can have it. You don't have to pay me any royalties. But when moving forward, when we live in an awesome world where people can have avatars, you should trademark your physical, maybe you already have done that, your physical presence, and then when there are avatars for sale, you can sell your own avatar either as a non-player character or as somebody inhabiting you for any virtual world. Mm-hmm.
I kind of already do that with video games.
Damn! You have it all figured out.
Good idea, though.
Can I buy Ella Darling in a video game?
I mean, I work with video game producers for that kind of content. But yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to put me in their video game, you just hit me right up. I would love to. I do want to say, going back to the previous point about like the content and how I'm concerned about people making content that isn't very good. That's why we are putting that into our platform. That's why we're making it part of the platform. Our software immediately stitches everything within the program. So the performer doesn't have to worry about those things. Everything is already happening. So the same way that you would view her on a live, in a live experience, and I've done this, if you download Cam4 VR, there's a pre-recorded demo that I've made in my bedroom, and you can see what I'm talking about. It's the same experience, it's just pre-recorded. So it's the same quality, it's basically the same, except that it's not live. So we've already worked out all of the nuts and bolts to make it work, and make it work correctly, and make it scale correctly, and make it, immersive and cohesive. So you can just, if you just learn the Cam platform, you can go straight from camming to recording something and then sell that through the site. But that's going to be available down the line, but soon.
Awesome. I have to ask you this critical question. I want your take on it since I have you on. A lot of people, I heard an interview on Fresh Air with an author that the name escapes me now again, who says that the ubiquity of pornography is creating all sorts of pressures on young teenage girls. Her point was that because the relationships in most pornography is of a certain, I guess, dominating kind. I'm not talking about BDSM. I'm just talking about, like, the man says you do that and then you do it, is a problem for young girls. How would you respond to that criticism that you and your colleagues are responsible for young girls not really exploring their own sexuality?
Well, I would say that, first of all, I'm not responsible for raising other people's children. I think those are things that a parent should really discuss with their kid. And I would say the flip side of that is that now we don't see sex as just this one thing. I mean, previously it's like, oh, you have sex. What does that mean? What, missionary, maybe doggy? Now we see sex as a very diverse spectrum of experiences, which means when we talk about sex with young people, and we absolutely should be, we're not talking about like, oh, if you have sex, you do this or you don't. Sex can be a lot of different things. It's up to you as the owner of your body to decide what is okay with you and what isn't. It's up to you to establish what your boundaries are and to stick to them. It's up to you to communicate your boundaries to your partner, to know what you're willing to explore and what you're not willing to explore. Sex is huge. There's so much that is encompassed with the word sex. That gives the opportunity to start a discussion with young people that I never really had. I mean, the sex education that I got when I was younger in school was that if I have sex, I'm literally garbage. Like, my virginity is a piece of gum, and once it's been chewed, nobody wants it. So I'm actually garbage if I have the audacity to have sex. What porn can do, and with the diversity of porn, what it can do is inspire people or encourage people to have a discourse about what people might want you to do, what you might want to do, and that whatever your interests are, if you like a very weird specific kind of sex, that's totally okay. You can do that thing. You should find somebody else who wants to do it with you, and you should only do that with people who consent to doing it, whatever it is. I think that is really actually a very healthy thing.
What is also in there a little bit is sometimes you hear news from the porn industry that female performers are sort of being practically abused. I mean, every once in a while some news item comes out. I have no idea if that is in any way, shape, or form accurate. Abuse happens everywhere, not only in that industry.
It does happen everywhere. And I think that anything like that is a great opportunity to have a discussion about how we can communicate what the important boundaries are and what to do when those boundaries are crossed. We need to encourage a culture of discussion and openness where if someone violates your boundaries and someone is abusing you or hurting you, you talk about it. You tell somebody. That's not acceptable. My organization, the Adult Performer Advocacy Committee, recently created a model bill of rights and a professional code of conduct, which clearly lays out expectations on set and off set, on camera and off camera. When you consent on camera is not the same as consent off camera. If I do something with you in front of the camera, that doesn't mean I'm willing to do it with you off camera. Even if the camera is cut, even if we're not filming right now, if I'm consenting to do it on camera, that doesn't mean that that consent carries over into our personal life or private life. And this is something that I think is important to communicate to everybody. Consent in one situation, even if you're not a pornographer or porn star, giving consent today doesn't mean I'm giving consent tomorrow. Giving consent right now doesn't mean I can't withdraw that consent in 15 or 20 minutes if situations change. That is a really, really good thing that we should be discussing in porn and out of porn. I think that people hesitate to discuss sex and boundaries and things like that because it can be embarrassing and it can be, something that people just don't feel comfortable discussing. But if you're comfortable having sex, you should be comfortable discussing sex and your sexual expectations and your sexual boundaries and what's okay with you and what isn't. You should be able to express what you like, what you're okay with, and what you absolutely are not fine with. Those are things that should be happening. I think every time we have sex, we should have that discussion, or at least have some form of that discussion.
Wonderfully put. What did you do in Sacramento? If you want to comment on that in closing, what were you speaking about at the state legislature?
There is a state ballot initiative that is likely to be on the California ballot in November, which is under the guise of protecting performers. It would actually create a very dangerous situation for performers. So the big thing that the organization that is pushing it is trying to communicate is that it's about condoms and it's about safe sex. That is not the issue. There are already laws on the books that mandate condoms on porn sets. It is a very scary law because what it says is that if any California citizen watches a porn scene and there is no condom, or even if there is a condom, but the condom isn't expressly visible, it offers an opportunity, and it offers kind of a loophole to where, let's say I'm just any California citizen. I can write into Cal OSHA and I can complain that I think this video might not have used a condom because, look, there's this frame where I can't see the condom. If Cal OSHA doesn't respond within 21 days, then that citizen can personally sue the production and anybody who had a financial interest in it. The letter of the law says that performers are supposed to be excluded from it. However, performers are also producers. We do cam shows. We make clips. I just told you about clips for sale. We are absolutely producers. We have affiliate programs instead of royalties. So performers by nature have a financial stake in it and therefore are vulnerable to be taken to court. And if that happens, and it's very easy to happen, if that happens, our legal names and home addresses would be made public record because it's a court situation. So basically, if Cal OSHA is inundated with complaints and they can't respond within a certain amount of time, then any citizen, the person who raised the complaint, could take me to court. If Cal OSHA makes the professional decision that, no, this is actually fine, we've evaluated it, we think it's okay, that doesn't stand. If Cal OSHA just decides that it's not worth pursuing, then the person who raised the complaint can move forward, and even if it's determined to be frivolous, all they have to do is they're responsible for our court fees, but no amount of court fees is going to take back my legal name and home address being put into public record. And additionally, the person who proposed it would basically be given a position in government with very little oversight. It would require essentially impeachment to remove him. There's no other state, there's no other position in the country that is like this, that would give someone that level of power for, he'd basically be Deputy Attorney General. if you live in California, please vote against this ballot measure in November because it hurts us so much.
All right, that was Ella Darling. We are linking to everything that we find online of her various ventures. She's outspoken on Twitter as well about many political issues. We're also going to link to what she mentioned, the Free Speech Coalition is opposing the Condoms in Pornographic Films initiative in California. As she explained it, that would open the door to anybody being able to sue an adult performer if a condom is not visible in an adult film. And that could be like one split second of a cut of a scene or something like that, and then would force the performer to reveal their address and their name and everything. And, I mean, this is worse to me than almost the DMCA, as we've seen in Second Life and other places where when a DMCA is filed and then you counterfile and then all of a sudden your name is out in the open and all that beautiful pseudonymity, which is so empowering, is out the window. Arden, what do you think now, having listened to this interview, about consuming? I mean, is this sort of consuming high-end content passively versus then in virtual worlds being actually actively engaged? Or where's the train headed?
It depends a bit on what you want on the sex scene. Would you just like to let off steam? You would totally go the passive way, just watch a movie or anything, if that aids you into doing that. Being interactive, you have to put more work into that, more effort. It's something totally different. You're building up a relationship with it, with the person you meet.
And as fast as technology is moving, I mean, I can totally see, this is what I was envisioning interviewing, and not, listeners, don't get me wrong, I'm not into having sexual relations with a furry, but I imagine...
Of course not.
Of course not. Let's just state it right here. But when Ella said, so with the Cam for VR, you can talk to the girls and then you can, you pay them, you say, can you do this, can you do that? And then you pay a little bit more for this and that. And now imagine when technology is moving and VR and 360 video is merging in the sense that we have real interactivity and virtual environments combined with a physical performer or hologram. Let's say you say to the girl or the guy, hey, turn into a furry. How much does that cost?
The technology already exists, probably in the developmental phase, but is there. We've seen, some of us probably seen demo videos on YouTube or otherwise of Microsoft.
Right. I was thinking of the HoloLens. I mean, because the HoloLens demos that we've seen are really pointing in a direction and it's moving extremely fast. We're almost there, furries. It won't take that long. Just be patient.
It makes me wonder, though, in 25 years from now, if we'd still be able to recognize the sex industry in virtual worlds. Maybe it's gone beyond anything you would imagine now. Mm-hmm. Something like in a Terry Gilliam movie or something.
Art, we have a Vulcan mind meld via Skype because I was just thinking of Terry Gilliam because the Zero Theorem, his latest film, is a great film and it has a substantial subplot, if not one of the main plots, is about virtual sex.
In real life, they have these outrageous, ridiculously looking virtual reality suits. They're all red, and there's this big gnome head on his head with a big cable coming out of it, flashing, and it's a wonderful movie. They end up on this beach, yes, and that's what's the first thing when you get into Second Life. You go open up search and you type in nude beach. That's the very first thing everyone types in.
Arden, I think you need to speak for yourself. I mean, I know that in 2000, whenever you rest first, you typed in nude beach. I have absolutely zero doubt. But I actually typed in library.
Really?
Yeah. Erotic library. Okay, I admit it.
Do you do requests, by the way, for songs? Because I'd really like to hear that old internet song called The Internet's for Porn.
Oh, absolutely. I think that we won't have a DMCA filed against us if we play that on this community radio station, and that's how we're going to go out. And that's my cue for ending the show. Thanks, guys, for listening. I want to mention just a few things and then ask Arden what he's up to for the weekend, as we traditionally do on the podcast. I have a new Drax Files video out about Ebony Khan. Has nothing to do with sex, has everything to do with shoes, which is even better, some women have told me. So please watch it, please share it, please comment on it. It'll make my day, it'll make Ebony's day, and it's a marvelous story about economic empowerment in virtual worlds, which is, again, unsurpassed. And I'm not anti-VR or anything, or I'm certainly pro more immersion, but the current VR movement has yet to prove to me that it has the same staying power and significance for individuals to be at the level playing field. And in some sense, Ella Darling, with her pioneering work in the porn industry, is actually far and few between in terms of monetizing that type of creativity. And so next week is the last show officially before the summer break. We're going to run interviews from Silicon Valley Virtual Reality Conference Expo from April. And I have tons of tape with super interesting people. And then we have a live show on the 24th of June from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the Second Life birthday party SL13B. So come down. We have super special guests. I'm not going to reveal any names. I'm just going to say Linden Lab, Microsoft. Actually, maybe I should say Microsoft, Linden Lab. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should say Google. I don't know. I'm not going to make any predictions. We're going to play it by ear. Lastly, I want to bring folks' attention to an article and a film that is just totally awesome. Speaking of Terry Gilliam, I actually think, I don't know, this puts everything together. There's a movie written by an algorithm. There's an AI that was fed screenplays. I don't know how many. Tons of screenplays. They listed here.
More than 100.
Right. There was one of my favorite films, Existence by David Cronenberg, was in there, and I think Existence actually dominates the result. Anyway, so a team of filmmakers and people from special effects artists and actors took that screenplay and made it into a short film that is about 9 minutes long. And this is the bizarrest thing. But it is awesome, and the dialogue is hilarious. There is one interaction where the and these actors are great, by the way.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's right.
So, what are you doing?
I don't want to be honest with you.
You don't have to be a doctor.
I'm not sure. I don't know what you're talking about.
I want to see you too.
What do you mean?
I'm sure you wouldn't even touch me.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's a very common phrase in that movie. And I must add that if art movies and art houses are your thing, then this must be very familiar. For the non-initiated, I would recommend a half a bottle of tequila first before you watch this.
I know. It's a consequence. Whatever you need to know about the presence of the story. I'm a little bit of a boy on the floor.
I don't know. I need you to explain to me what you say.
What do you mean?
Because I don't know what you're talking about.
I would have sworn if I would have asked this particular AI, what's your favorite color, it would have said transparent. And if I would have asked, are you actually just an Alice bot, it would have said yes.
I understand, Art, but I think it's very unfair to criticize this AI that the movie is challenged in the linear fashion. I think Stanley Kubrick would have hired that AI as a screenwriter for sure.
I don't know. I think screenwriting is probably one of the hardest parts in producing a movie.
This gives us, who are connoisseurs, I mean myself, connoisseur of art house films and sort of niche stuff in terms of music and musical theater, gives a tremendous sigh of relief that that humans have to, are needed, I think, for a substantial amount longer than the AI fans have predicted. And this goes out to Carl Stiefvater, formerly of Linden Lab, who was very successful with his Picasso app. I'm going to link to that again, which is also based on neural networks, and you can basically create an artwork based on the style of any artist, even your own art, within minutes. And very compelling images. And, Carl, without wanting to destroy it, has said to me, this is going to destroy or substantially challenge human-made art and probably music in the very near future. So take it as you will. Watch this film. Go to Ella Darling's websites. Check out the Camp for VR, and also get your tarot readings from Mona V. Voigt. And we're going to end the show with the song that you requested, which is called "The Internet Is for Porn." Thanks, Arden. Have a great weekend, and bye.
Bye bye.
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by SL Artist, Warbug, 01 Heavy Industries Corporation, Extraordinary Fine Magical Goods, Ionic, Maven Homes, Giza Creations, Botanical, Strawberry Sing, Abranimations, Eros Avatars, Cube Republic, What Next, Dutchy Furniture, Landscapes Unlimited, Bay Cities for Kids, Fallen Gods Incorporated, Feroce SL, and Death Row Designs. Contact the show via Skype, DraxFiles, Avatar DraxFiles, or email radio@draxfiles.com.
And so, what are you up on the for the weekend, Arden?
Oh, well, as I mentioned, I have these new 360-degree goggles. I can just slide my phone in, and I'm going to use it this weekend to watch some educational movies.
With naked women in them.
I'm a biologist, you know that, right?
I understand. Makes total sense.
Cheers.